My sister hijacked my 7-year-old son's birthday party for her friends, so I had police throw them out. I spent $5,000 on my son's birthday party, but when I arrived, my son was in a corner crying and my sister was the one being celebrated. "Thanks for the party," she told me, laughing. I am Sebastian, a 34-year-old single father, and my world revolved around one person, my son, Tomas. He was 7 years old, with big, curious eyes that seemed to absorb everything he saw, and a smile that could light up the entire city. Since his mother left us when he was just 2 years old, I did everything in my power to be the best father possible. It was not easy, but every sacrifice was worth it when I saw him laugh, or when he hugged me before bed and said, "I love you, Dad." That little boy was my everything. I worked as a manager at a logistics company, a demanding job, but one that allowed me to give Tomas a comfortable life. We were not millionaires, but we were doing well. I lived for him, to make sure he never lacked anything, not love, not a safe home, not dreams he could achieve. But not everything in my life was as simple as my love for Tomas. My family, or rather my parents, Rafael and Marina, and my younger sister Christina, were a burden I had been carrying for far too long. My parents always had a blatant preference for Christina. Since we were little, everything revolved around her. If Christina wanted a toy, she got it. If she asked for new clothes, my parents would go out of their way to please her. I, on the other hand, was always the responsible one, the one who had to understand that resources were limited and that Christina needed more. Do not get me wrong, I was not resentful of my childhood, but it did frustrate me to see how my parents' attitude turned Christina into the person she was, a 25-year-old woman who did not work, who expected everything to fall into her lap, and who acted as if the whole world owed her something. When Christina started college, my parents begged me to help her pay her tuition. "She is your sister, Sebastian. You cannot leave her on your own," they would tell me with that pleading tone they always used to manipulate me. I, who already had enough responsibilities with Tomas and my job, agreed, because despite everything, I felt it was my duty as an older brother. I had been paying for her fashion design degree for 2 years, a degree that, according to her, would make her someone important. But in those 2 years, Christina did not show a shred of gratitude. On the contrary, she became more arrogant, speaking with a tone of superiority that drove me crazy. Every time I saw her, she treated me as if I were her personal assistant, not her brother. "Sebastian, I need you to give me more money for a university project. Sebastian, do not be stingy. This is important for my future." It was always the same. Despite it all, I kept going, focusing on what really mattered, Tomas. This year, his 7th birthday was approaching, and I wanted it to be special. Tomas was a shy boy, but when he was with his friends, he transformed. I wanted him to have an unforgettable day, something he would remember with a smile for the rest of his life. So, I saved for months and decided to spend $5,000 on the best birthday party I could imagine. I booked a luxury event hall in the city center, one of those places with a pool, a playground with swings and slides, and space for the kids to run and play. The cake would be 3 tiers, decorated with Tomas's favorite superheroes. There were balloons of every color, confetti, catering with food that kids love, and even an entertainer dressed as Spider-Man, my son's favorite hero. Everything was planned down to the last detail with the event organizer, a professional guy who assured me it would be the best birthday any kid could dream of. I was excited. Every time I looked at Tomas, I imagined his happy little face when he saw everything I had prepared for him. But as always, life has a way of complicating things. 2 days before the birthday, my boss called me into his office. "Sebastian, we have an important meeting on Saturday. It is with a big client, and you cannot miss it." Saturday was Tomas's birthday. I tried to negotiate. I told him it was a special day for my son, that I could send someone else in my place, but my boss was firm. "It is non-negotiable, Sebastian. If you want to keep growing in this company, you will be there." I felt a knot in my stomach. I did not want to disappoint Tomas, but I could not risk my job either. It was a horrible dilemma, but in the end, I had no choice. I decided to trust my parents. I called them and explained the situation. "Dad, Mom, I need you to help me with Tomas's party. Take him to the venue. Make sure everything is in order and that he is happy. I will get there halfway through the party after the meeting." My dad, Rafael, responded in his usual calm tone. "Do not worry, son. We will take care of it. Tomas is going to have an amazing time." My mom, Marina, added, "You just focus on your work and we will make sure the birthday is perfect." Their words gave me some peace. I thought that even if I was not there from the beginning, Tomas would be in good hands. My parents could be exasperating with Christina, but they loved their grandson, right? I trusted them. Big mistake. The day of the birthday arrived. I woke up early, hugged Tomas, and told him, "Today is your special day, little one. You are going to have the best party in the world." He smiled, but I noticed a bit of nervousness in his eyes. "Are you going to be there, Dad?" he asked. I assured him that I would arrive a little later, but that I would be with him to blow out the candles. Then I left him with my parents, who came to pick him up, and I went to the meeting with a heavy heart. The meeting was a disaster. The client was in a bad mood. My boss was tense, and I could not concentrate. The whole time I was thinking about Tomas, about how he would be running through the park, laughing with his friends, swimming in the pool. I imagined his happiness, and that gave me the strength to endure the 3 endless hours of the meeting. When it finally ended, I rushed to the event hall. I was anxious to see my son, to hug him and join the party. When I got to the venue, I parked the car in the parking lot of the luxurious event hall, my heart pounding with excitement to see Tomas. I had imagined this moment hundreds of times in my head, my little boy running towards me with that smile that lights up everything, telling me how much he was enjoying his special day. But as I approached the entrance, something stopped me in my tracks. From outside, I could hear loud, vibrant music, but it was not the cheerful children's music I had so carefully selected with the organizer. It was not superhero theme songs, or the melodies that make kids jump for joy. It was the kind of electronic music that blasts in nightclubs, with deep bass that made the ground vibrate beneath my feet. I frowned, confused. Maybe they had the wrong playlist. Or maybe the organizer had decided to add something more modern for the adults accompanying the children. I shook my head, trying not to think the worst, and pushed open the glass door to enter. The hall was decorated exactly as I had imagined, colorful balloons floating everywhere, shiny streamers hanging from the ceiling, tables with superhero tablecloths, and a 3-tiered cake in the center with a Spider-Man figure on top. But something was wrong, terribly wrong. There were no children running around, no childish laughter, no sound of balloons popping or little ones screaming with excitement. Instead, the place was filled with adults, all dressed as if they were at a fancy party, men in open shirts, women in tight dresses and high heels, all laughing, drinking cocktails from shiny plastic cups, and dancing to the rhythm of the deafening music. The pool, which I had imagined full of children playing with floaties, was occupied by a group of young people who were shouting and pushing each other with laughter, splashing water everywhere. The atmosphere was chaotic, as if I had walked into a nightclub in the middle of the night, not a 7-year-old's birthday party. My gaze scanned the room, desperately looking for Tomas. Where was my son? My heart started to beat faster, a knot of anxiety forming in my chest. Then I saw her, in the center of the hall, standing on a makeshift stage that was not in the plans I had discussed with the organizer, was my sister, Christina. She was wearing a shiny silver dress that reflected the colored lights of the venue, and an arrogant smile that made me clench my fists. She was dancing, waving her arms as if she were the queen of the night, surrounded by her friends, all adults, all laughing and applauding her. Some held drinks, others recorded videos with their cell phones, and she seemed to enjoy every second of the attention. What the hell was going on? My eyes fell on my parents, Raphael and Marina, who were standing to the side of the stage, smiling as if they were at the event of the year. My dad was clapping to the beat of the music, and my mom had a drink in her hand, laughing as she talked to one of Christina's friends. Fury began to boil in my veins, but I tried to stay calm. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe this was some kind of misunderstanding. I walked towards them, pushing my way through the crowd of strangers who had nothing to do with my son's party. "What is going on here?" I asked, raising my voice to be heard over the music. My tone was firm, but I was still trying not to explode. My mom looked at me, and her smile did not waver for 1 second. "Oh, Sebastian, you are here," she said, as if everything were perfectly normal. "We are celebrating Christina's birthday. It is next week, but we decided to take advantage of the hall. Look how much fun she is having. Is she not beautiful?" Her words were like a bucket of cold water. Christina's birthday in the hall I had paid for with $5,000 of my savings for my son. I could not process it. My mind went blank for a moment, as if the whole world had stopped. "What?" I shouted, losing all trace of calm. "This is Tomas's party. I paid for all of this for my son. Where is he? What did you do with his party?" My voice echoed in the hall, and a few people nearby turned to look at me, but I did not care. My dad, with his usual everything is under control attitude, put a hand on my shoulder as if that would calm me down. "Calm down, Sebastian, it is not that big of a deal," he said in a condescending tone that only fueled my rage. "Tomas is little, he does not need such a big party. Christina, on the other hand, deserves it. It is an important moment for her, and this place is perfect to celebrate it. Besides, she organized it all herself. Is that not incredible?" I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. My own parents, Tomas's grandparents, had allowed Christina to take over my son's party as if he did not matter, as if his feelings, his happiness, were worthless compared to my sister's whims. The rage burned inside me, but before confronting them, I needed to find Tomas. My eyes scanned the room again desperately until I saw him. In a corner, far from the lights, the music, and the commotion, was my little boy. He was sitting on the floor, with his knees hugged to his chest, his head down, and his little shoulders shaking as he cried silently. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. All the effort, the months of saving, the nights planning every detail to make him happy, and there he was, alone, humiliated on his own birthday. I ran to him, ignoring everyone else. I knelt beside him and hugged him tightly, feeling his small arms cling to me as if I were his only refuge. "I am sorry, little one. I am so sorry," I murmured, my voice breaking. Tomas's tears soaked my shirt, and each of his sobs was like a knife stabbing me in the chest. "Dad, I thought it was my party," he said between tears, his voice so fragile I could barely hear it. "They said it was for Aunt Christina and my friends left." Every word he spoke fueled the fury growing inside me. My family had not only stolen my son's party, but they had also made him feel invisible, insignificant. I stood up with Tomas still clinging to my hand and headed towards Christina like a storm about to break. The music was still blasting, but my rage was stronger. "This is not your party," I yelled, pointing at her with a trembling finger. "It is my son's birthday. I paid for all of this. Get out of here right now." Christina stopped dancing and looked at me with that arrogant expression I despise so much, that mix of contempt and superiority she always uses to get her way. "Oh, please, Sebastian, do not be so dramatic," she said, rolling her eyes. "I am high class, not some kid who cannot appreciate these things. Besides, Mom and Dad agreed, right?" She turned to my parents with a triumphant smile, and they nodded as if it were all perfectly reasonable. Christina's friends, who were around her, started laughing and booing me. "Relax, man," shouted one of them, a guy in a shiny shirt with a drink in his hand. "It is just a party," another added. "Let her enjoy it, do not be a killjoy." The laughter and boos spread like a wave, but I could not hear anything but Tomas's trembling voice repeating in my head. I looked at my parents, hoping, praying that they would say something, that they would acknowledge their mistake, that they would apologize for what they had done to my son, but no. My mom looked at me with disapproval, as if I were the one ruining everything. "You are so selfish, Sebastian," she said, crossing her arms. "Tomas does not need a $5,000 party, he is just a child. Christina, on the other hand, is at an important point in her life. You should be proud of her." Those words were the straw that broke the camel's back. I felt something inside me break, as if years of frustration, of putting up with Christina's whims, of giving in to my parents' demands, had accumulated in a single moment of pure fury. I could not take it anymore. I picked Tomas up in my arms, his little body trembling against mine, and walked out of the hall without looking back. I ignored the laughter, the sarcastic comments from Christina's friends, the reproachful looks from my parents. Outside, the cool night air hit my face, but it did not calm the storm inside me. I took out my cell phone with trembling hands and dialed the number of the event organizer, a man named Diego, who had been impeccable throughout the planning process. "Diego, everything has gotten out of control," I said, my voice trembling with rage and pain. "There are people here who should not be. This is my son's party, and they have turned it into something it is not. I want you to get them all out now." Diego, who had witnessed my enthusiasm for this party, sounded genuinely dismayed. "Sebastian, I am so sorry. I had no idea this was happening. Give me 15 minutes and I will fix it." I hung up, tears of frustration burning in my eyes, and hugged Tomas even tighter. "Everything is going to be okay, little one," I whispered, though I was not sure if I was saying it for him or for me. 15 minutes later, Diego arrived with 2 police cars. The officers entered the hall with authority, asking everyone to leave the premises immediately. The music stopped abruptly, and the chaos gave way to a tense silence. I saw Christina come out, her makeup streaked by tears, yelling at me from the doorway. "You are a fool, Sebastian. You made me look ridiculous in front of all my friends." Her words did not affect me. I was too furious, too hurt to feel any pity for her. My parents came out behind her, their faces filled with contempt. "You are selfish," my dad said, pointing a finger at me. "You ruined everything over a whim." My mom added, "Tomas will be fine, but what you did to your sister is unforgivable." I could not hold back anymore. "You are the selfish ones," I yelled, my voice breaking. "You hurt my son, your own grandson, and you do not feel a shred of guilt. How dare you tell me I am wrong? I do not want to see you ever again. From this moment on, you are no longer my parents." My words echoed in the parking lot, and for one moment, everything was silent. Christina was sobbing. My parents looked at me as if I were a stranger, and Christina's friends muttered among themselves as they walked away, but I did not care. The only thing that mattered was the little boy holding my hand. the child who deserved so much more than what my family had given him. My sister hijacked my 7-year-old son's birthday party for her friends, so I had police throw them out. I went back into the hall with Tomas, determined to salvage what was left of his day. Diego, who felt guilty for not having supervised better, went out of his way to help me. He called some entertainers who were still available and contacted the parents of Tomas's friends, whom my parents had sent home without any explanation. Little by little, the hall filled up again with children, with laughter, with the joy I had planned from the beginning. It was not the perfect party I had imagined, but when Tomas blew out the candles on his cake, with a small smile appearing on his face, I felt that I had at least done something right. That night, as I tucked Tomas into bed, he looked at me with those big trusting eyes. "Thanks, Dad," he said before falling asleep. I sat beside him with a heavy but determined heart. I would never let my family hurt my son again. The next day, I picked up the phone and canceled Christina's college tuition. I was not going to keep financing the whims of someone who did not respect my son, who did not respect what I love most in this world. When my parents and Christina found out, my phone exploded with messages and calls. "You are a monster," Christina wrote. "How could you do this to your sister?" my mom said in a voicemail full of indignation. "You are selfish," my dad added. But I no longer cared. I replied to them only once. "If you want Christina to continue her studies, you pay for it. I am done carrying her whims." Then I blocked their numbers. I found out later that Christina had to get a job but could not continue with college. My parents have not stopped trying, sending me messages through other relatives. But my decision is made. I have cut off all contact with them and with Christina. Now it is just Tomas and me. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like we are free. My son deserves a father who always puts him first, and I am determined to be that father. It has been 6 months since that disastrous night, and the most profound change in my life hasn't been the absence of their phone calls, but the overwhelming peaceful silence that has settled into our home. For my entire adult life, the background noise of my existence was the constant hum of my family's demands. It was the guilt-tripping text messages from my mother, the heavy sighs of disappointment from my father, and the frantic, entitled demands from Christina. Now, the only sounds filling my house are the ones that actually matter. The cartoons playing on the television on Saturday mornings, the sound of Tomas building his blocks, and the genuine, unburdened laughter of my son. Still, I would be lying if I said the transition was easy. The silence at first was deafening. There were nights when I sat alone in the living room, staring at my phone, half expecting it to light up with a furious message from my parents. The emotional muscle memory of being the responsible, accommodating son is incredibly hard to break. There is a unique kind of grief that comes with mourning people who are still alive. Society conditions us to believe that family is an unbreakable bond, a sacred tie that must endure any amount of disrespect. I spent weeks wrestling with a toxic, insidious guilt. Was I too harsh? Should I have handled it differently? Did I overreact by calling the police? These questions haunted me during my sleepless nights. But every time that dark cloud of doubt began to hover over me, my mind would flash back to that single shattering image. Tomas sitting on the floor, knees pulled to his chest, crying alone in the shadows while the people who were supposed to love him most danced under the lights. That image is my anchor. It reminds me that my anger was not an overreaction. It was a long overdue shield. I did not break my family apart. I simply stopped sacrificing my son to keep their illusion of a perfect family intact. For 34 years, I had viewed myself through the lens of my parents' expectations. I was a walking wallet, a quiet problem solver, a secondary character in the grand production of Christina's life. Cutting them off forced me to confront my own worth. I realized that my capacity to love and provide was being drained by people who saw it as an endless resource to exploit. Taking back my financial and emotional independence was terrifying, but it was also the most liberating choice I have ever made. I finally recognized that I deserved the same fierce protection and loyalty that I was giving to my son. The most beautiful reward for this painful severing of ties has been watching Tomas bloom. Before the birthday incident, he was a timid boy, always hesitant, always shrinking himself to take up less space, perhaps subconsciously mirroring how I had lived my life around my parents. Now, there is a newfound confidence in his steps. He speaks louder, he laughs harder, and he asks for what he wants without fear of being pushed aside or told his needs are secondary. He no longer asks about his grandparents or his aunt. While that brings a brief pang of sorrow to my heart for the family he should have had, it also brings immense relief. He is safe from their casual cruelties. The realization hit me like a freight train. By walking away, I wasn't just saving a birthday party. I was breaking a generational curse. I was teaching my son that love does not equal subjugation, and that he never has to earn his right to be respected. Today, my definition of family has completely changed. It is no longer defined by bloodlines or obligation. Family is Diego, the event planner who still texts me to check on how Tomas is doing. It is the parents of Tomas's friends, who rallied together that night to salvage a ruined party. It is the small, tight-knit community of friends who have stepped in to fill the void my parents left behind. Above all, family is just Tomas and me. We are a team. The road ahead might still have its lonely moments, and there will inevitably be holidays where the absence of my parents will sting. But looking at the peace in my son's eyes, I know with absolute certainty that the price of admission was worth it. To answer the question of whether I would have the courage to draw that line again, yes, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I lost a family that never truly valued me, but I gained the right to be the father my son deserves. To better understand the nature of the problem, let's temporarily set aside the emotions of the main character and analyze this series of events from a broader perspective. What happened at that birthday party was not a sudden accident or a single moment of cruelty. It was the final, visible result of a pattern that had been quietly growing for years. A family dynamic built on favoritism, silent tolerance, and emotional manipulation eventually reached a breaking point. When one child is constantly treated as the responsible one, while another is endlessly excused and celebrated, the imbalance does not disappear. It simply waits for the moment when its consequences become impossible to ignore. In many families, society encourages the language of sacrifice. We hear phrases like, be the bigger person, keep the peace, or family must come first. On the surface, these values sound noble. But too often, they are used to pressure the responsible person into accepting unfair treatment indefinitely. Sebastian's story reveals how that pressure works. For years he paid for his sister's education, tolerated her entitlement, and accepted his parents' favoritism, believing it was his duty as the older brother. Yet that same culture of endless accommodation created someone who believed she deserved everything, even a child's birthday party. When a family repeatedly rewards selfishness and ignores boundaries, selfishness grows stronger while respect slowly disappears. At first glance, the turning point may look dramatic: police cars arriving, guests being forced out, and a father cutting off contact with his parents. But when we look deeper, the real turning point happened much earlier, in the quiet moment when Sebastian saw his son sitting alone in a corner, crying on the floor during his own birthday. That image represents a powerful emotional truth. Sometimes it takes seeing the pain of someone we love to finally recognize the cost of our silence. I think many people watching this story will recognize pieces of their own lives. Maybe not the exact same situation, but the familiar tension between loyalty and self-respect. For a long time, it is easier to endure unfair treatment than to confront it. Speaking the truth risks conflict. Drawing boundaries risks being labeled selfish or ungrateful. Yet there is a quiet courage in saying enough. Setting limits is not destroying a family. It is often the first step toward restoring dignity and fairness within it. And perhaps the most important lesson in this story is that protecting the next generation sometimes requires confronting the previous one. When Sebastian chose his son's emotional well-being over family pressure, he was not acting out of revenge or anger. He was correcting a pattern that had already lasted too long. So here is the question that lingers after the story ends. If standing up for your child meant permanently breaking ties with your own parents and sibling, would you still have the courage to draw that line?